Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very, very special episode on Republic TV. Very recently, Joe Biden, the President of the United States of America, gave 90 days to his intelligence agencies with one single brief: find out what happened at Wuhan. Now, 3.5 million people are dead. 3.5 million. When the Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear attacks took place, they killed approximately 1 lakh plus people. More than 3 times the number of people died because of this Wuhan virus. Where is all this going? And after the announcement by President Biden, is the world going to see a US-China face-off? Today, I have with me a very special list of guests. We have Professor Sriram Cholia, Dr. Sriram Cholia, Professor and Dean, General School of International Affairs and Republic contributor. A very warm welcome, Professor. And we also had Manjeet Kriplani here with us, Executive Director, Gateway House of India. Manjeet, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
So I'll start with Dr. Cholia. Tell me first, what do you think about Joe Biden saying that I'm giving 90 days to my agencies to figure out what's going on, and I want to report what are the origins of the virus? Is it an accident? Is it through a wet market? Was it designed or manufactured in a lab? What are the diplomatic repercussions of Joe Biden's statements?
Well, Gaurav, there is a diplomatic and also domestic angle here. As you know, last year, during the US election, there was a big clamor about China lied, people died. And Donald Trump had raised this in a big way. And at that time, the Democrats were saying that, no, it's a diversion and we should focus on the mismanagement of the pandemic within the US. So at the time, it was a political football, but now the election is over. But still, the pressure is there to find out what happened in Wuhan or in other parts of China in late 2019 or even before that, so that we get to the bottom and so that we can avert future pandemics and also find some kind of psychological closure. Because the US alone, Gaurav, almost 600,000 deaths have happened officially. And people have suffered a lot from this virus. So they are asking questions. Both the political class and the general public do not believe that the matter is over. China is saying, already one WHO investigation has been done. They manipulated it and now they're saying there's no need, chapter closed. But I think Biden wants to show that he has to be accountable to this push from the society. How can 600,000 American lives and the millions more around the world just go unanswered? How can China be let off the hook without coming to the nub of the matter? Negligence, like you said, or deliberate, whatever it was, how did this virus emanate so quickly and spread all over the world? So people are asking for answers. That is one. Diplomatically, I think we are talking about a new Cold War or China-US extreme competition, as Biden calls it. Others are saying that, the Chinese are saying that this is an era of, great strategic struggle with the United States. So it will play into that rivalry. I mean, it's not only a scientific issue, it's a geopolitical issue, no doubt about it. And the US will try to continue to keep this issue alive because it's necessary for them as part of their competition. And Biden administration are saying that the main fault line today is between democracy and authoritarianism. So they will want to use this corona investigation to drive home the point that the basic issue is with the opaqueness and the closeness and the non-transparency of the totalitarian system of China and the dictatorship of Xi Jinping. That's why they covered up. That's why they hide. That's why they obstruct a genuine scientific inquiry. That's why they try to make it look like they have come out successfully, when actually their system, which the Chinese claim is superior, is the cause of this whole problem in the first place. Because had it not been for the Communist Party and their manipulation of information, we would not have reached this horrific stage in the world. So I think the US will look to embarrass China, and in that sense, it's good for the whole world because we need the truth. So let them play politics. Let it be a political thing. At the same time, we will try to get the scientific facts out. The Chinese are not obliged through the multilateral process of WHO and the nice way of doing it, which is through cooperation. So it is now up to intelligence agencies. It's now up to national security apparatus. It's now up to not only the US agencies, but also allied agencies. For example, recent disclosures, Gaurav, many of them have come, they are saying through allies of the US. Some of the sensational leaks about the the virology institute in Wuhan, their staff getting sick. Also, there's a mine elsewhere in China where the viruses had been apparently cultivated even before 2019. Some of these have come from allied agencies. So I think it's also part of the global US alliance system now. They are all going to be roped in, and strategic partners like India should also cooperate, because it is in our best interest to not just nail the lie of the Chinese, but also to assure our own people that a historical crime of this nature should not be just left unresolved.
Absolutely, absolutely, Shriram. Now, Manjit, I'm going to have to ask you to do a little bit of crystal gazing here. All right. The investigation has been ordered or reordered. In fact, reordered. So we've heard of investigations in the past as well. 3.5 million people have died, which is horrific. I want to ask you about this face-off between China and the US. Apparently, it's heading towards a face-off, because whether the virus came out of a lab or it came out of a wet market, the fact of the matter is that the virus came out of China. This, even the Chinese do not dispute. They've tried to muddy the waters, but this they do not dispute. And they also do not dispute that 3.5 million people worldwide have died. Now, what are the repercussions of this inquiry? Joe Biden tells maybe the CIA, the Homeland Security, the FBI, or whichever agencies they have, figure out, let me know within 90 days, get to the bottom of this. Now, if they get to the bottom and they say that this was a lab leak or a bioweapon, what happens then? I'm asking you to crystal gaze 3 months ahead. And also, in these 3 months, how do you see the relationship between China and the US panning out?
So this is a good kind of crystal gazing to do. Right away, I think that China has achieved its goal during this pandemic. It has created a G2 world. That's what they always wanted. They wanted America and they wanted China and they wanted equality with the US. That they have gotten, because while everybody was reeling, they have accelerated all their programs to make China great. Okay? So what happens 3 months from now, if Joe Biden finds, and I have no doubt that they will actually find it, they will also punish their own scientists who have been lying all this while, because they have to cover up for the American funding of the Institute of Virology there. If that happens, I think that I don't know whether we will see a world war, but I think there will be a lot of pressure. You know, China thrives on its connections with the US. China has gained because it is literally connected to the US in every way. Manufacturing, institutes of virology. I don't know whether anybody remembers, but in 2001, when the US brought in China into the WTO, I mean, Charlene Brzezowski, the US trade representative, worked hours overnight, night and day, to get China into the WTO. China is the child of the US. Basically, what you've got is the child of the US is now challenging and lying to its parent. So, you know how they say in the Bible, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Well, the Lord in this case was the US, and it gave China what it could, and it also has the capacity to take it away. The question is, will they? And I think they will. They will break these international engagements of scientific engagements with China. There are many, many global scientific engagements that take place just now, even with the Mars mission, the Chinese Mars mission. US has collaborated with them, so has Europe. So I think these will start to get broken. Definitely, there's a big tug of war with the manufacturing, the business communities in the US and in Europe, not to break away because they've made these big investments in China. But the new industries, I think, will no longer be in China. There will be no feeding China with new technologies. And any technological engagement with China, I think we will see that break away. In any case, China has isolated itself technologically because it has its own systems. It doesn't allow the American, social media companies, etc., to come in. But it won't be that difficult, I think, to withdraw. And so when that starts to happen, China is going to feel it. The question is China under Xi Jinping going to do anything different? Is it going to deliberately take this as an insult? Because as we know, in the rest of the world, China's rating is really, really low. But at home, apparently, according to the latest popularity reports and the research, the ratings done in China, that Xi Jinping has a 98% popularity rating. This could be fabricated, but I think that is the big question. 3 months from now, are you going to see China maybe indulge in some very serious saber rattling? And in which case, is it going to start doing things on Taiwan? Is it really going to start making those moves? And then what will happen? So,
Dr. Cholia, Manjeet said, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." She quoted the Holy Bible. And I agree, the Lord being the United States of America. Now, I'd like to ask you here, China, if I'd asked you to name 3 motorcycle brands that were Chinese, you'd be hard-pressed to do so, or 3 car brands that were Chinese, or even 3 fountain pen brands that were Chinese. You won't be able to name those brands because China has built this economy, this supercharged economy, on the basis of contract manufacturing. Now, most of it comes from the United States of America and Europe, right? And China does not have the innovation, the inbuilt innovation to sustain such a massive economy. It depends on certain factors. Like Manjeet very rightly said, it's dovetailed right into the American economy everywhere. It goes right deep into the American economy. But what happens if the Americans tomorrow say that we are pulling out? Slowly and slowly. Like she also very rightly pointed out, Manjeet said that maybe new industries are not going to open in China. Maybe they'll go to Indonesia, to Malaysia, to India, to Bangladesh, to Thailand, to so many other countries, which provide an excellent manufacturing base, an excellent manufacturing ecosystem. I'd like your comments on this.
Well, Gaurav, the decoupling of the US and Chinese economies began under Trump and to an extent. This is a work in progress because, there are some costs of investments. I mean, if you look at a company like Apple, America's or the world's most valuable technology company, they have, invested so much in mainland China and in Hong Kong. So for them to be able to pull out or to defy the Chinese entails severe costs. So, there are lots of such big American corporations, Hollywood, even the NBA, the Basketball Association, a lot of them have got, embroiled in the Chinese market and in the sourcing and the supply chains. So for them to step out of it, I think some of them, industry bodies, some of them continue to believe that profit is everything, margins are everything, and that being in China will still be crucial for them to make the next buck. But I think the kind of crisis we are seeing now, the pandemic has really opened the eyes of the world about over-dependence on China. We are saying Atmanirbhar Bharat in India, and lots of others in the US and else in Europe are now questioning the whole model of a globalization centered around China as the factory of the world. So I think the outsourcing, the whole wave of outsourcing we saw from the 1990s into China, where the West pumped trillions into China to save costs, that is now at a crossroads. I don't think it's viable in the long run. But next few years, you may not see a dramatic drop in or pull out of Western capital from all of China and Hong Kong. But they are realizing, because there is pressure at home. Then there is this whole ESG environment, the environment, social and governance investment logic. People are asking, is there an ethical basis to what we are doing? How can you go and make billions in a market and agree to their censorship and become a pawn to be used by the Chinese Communist Party? Do you have any values or not? So all the big tech companies, big manufacturers, all these are now under pressure, investor pressure. So ethical investing now, it's like, how can we saw this recently with Nike and others, where people are asking about cotton farming in Xinjiang, where the Chinese run concentration camps and are forcing Uyghurs, poor minority groups, to produce cotton under slave labor like conditions. Can Western companies, should they be profiting through this kind of supply chain? So I think the more those moral questions come up, the more the issue of democracy versus dictatorship comes up, the clearer the lines will be. Right now, what the Chinese did before Xi Jinping was they mixed it up. They said, no, economically China is open, so you should have no problem. Only politically we are closed. But the political closeness, or the opaqueness, has come back to haunt us now, because now we are saddled with a massive global pandemic because of China's political closeness. So they have to disentangle all this and be clearer morally. Strategically, I think US Defense Department, State Department are, I think, quite clear. The American elites are quite clear that China is the biggest rival and it should not be allowed to overtake the US. So they are already preparing for that. But corporate America and American society, ordinary people who got used to, the cheap Chinese manufactured products, and which would make a dent in their pocket, have to make a choice. It's the same for the whole world. All of us who've been buying Chinese products, if we are willing to sacrifice a little bit of our own personal well-being and shell out a little more in order to maintain our dignity, our sovereignty, and to avoid over-dependence on China. That consciousness has to be there, and the Corona origins investigation is part of that larger quest. It's not only a scientific issue of virology or epidemiology or pandemic. It's also about how we can wean ourselves away from this drug called China, which has entered into our very ways of living for so long.
Professor Cholia speaks about an ethical corporate America. Now, that's like a pipe dream, but do you think corporate America is going to grow an ethical spine somewhere down the line and say that, okay, you have so many concentration camps in Xinjiang, and this is how you do business. You're not a democracy. The people's voice in China is stifled. Democracy movements are put down. 1.5 million Uyghur Muslims are in concentration camps for the only crime, quote unquote, of being Muslims. That is why they're in those camps. Do you think corporate America will grow morality overnight, or grow an ethical spine, if I may put it that way?
So Gaurav, that is the multi-billion-dollar question. Business everywhere will do anything for a profit. But what has happened in America, I don't know whether corporate America will grow a spine or have, what politicians love to call values. But I think that what is going to happen is that because they outsourced everything to China, right? They outsourced their pollution to China. All the polluting industries went there. They outsourced everything except maybe some services to India, IT services. They saw not just lower price goods and higher profits for companies, but they also saw a societal problem. And what we saw taking place in the last 5 years in the US is that. So they have brought home, for those extra profits, they have brought home a really troubled polity. They really have no choice because they are funding politicians, but politicians, from what I understand in America, the politicians and the people are on one side. The corporations are on the other side. You really cannot eventually go against your own consumer. So there is the American consumers at the moment don't have any money to buy goods. They just don't have it. So this is a good time for them to take that break and say, no more cheap products. We're now going to bring it back home to some degree. And, maybe they'll keep some of the old ones to maybe die, the factories to die. The key is, though, they have to bring their new technology back home and they have to create jobs at home. They have no choice. Now, Americans can be very heartless. They did not, what Sriram was saying earlier, they could have gotten to the bottom of this very early when President Trump said, this has come from China, we know it has. He could have begun the investigation, but it was so political. And the media, the American media, was so determined to get him out, and they really dominate the global airwaves. Nothing happened. In the meanwhile, you've seen so many millions of American lives lost. Americans have the ability to just say, okay, on with it, it's gone, let's move on to the next. So they might also have the ability to say, we'll just start investment as lost investment, let's look ahead to the future because we have the technology. And let's really hope that they treat their investments in China with the same kind of um, cavalierness that they dealt with their own losses. They could have prevented these loss of lives even in the US by going after China early. They did not. 15 months later, here we all are, in India particularly, losing lives where America is starting to recover, but other countries are not. Hopefully, they will. No more lives will be lost. And we hope that corporate America will, become that, start following the ESG norms that they themselves give.
Absolutely. Dr. Chalia, all of us have heard about this three warfare strategy of China: psychological warfare, media warfare, and legal warfare. And we've all studied it because this is what we do, we who are involved in foreign affairs, geostrategy, and national security. Now, you see, what seems to a casual observer, and I think it's true also, China has put this huge PR machine into play. Whether it's op-eds in the New York Times or whether it's editorials in the Washington Post, the Time magazine, they're using media warfare as a tool. So suddenly you have a South African variant, you have an India variant, you have a UK variant, a US variant, even a California variant. But you don't have a Chinese variant where it originated from. Now, this is a question that has been frequently asked and regularly asked in the past few months. China takes great exception to anybody saying that this is the Wuhan virus or this is the Chinese virus. When Trump said China virus for the first time, the Chinese heckles were up. But today, China has no compulsions about talking about an India variant or a Singapore variant for that matter. I want you to shed some light on this huge media manipulation machine that is literally owned by the Chinese. They throw money and they manage media and social media through various pressure groups and through advertising and through various means. I'd like your comments on this, please.
Well, Gaurav, definitely they have manipulated the open societies. What they've done is they have penetrated deep into countries that are willing to broadcast their TV channels. They ban all the big US social media platforms for their own people, but their agent provocateurs are all over these platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, you name it. So they are master manipulators, and they do. The problem is, you see, people in Europe and the US have been fixated on Russia too much. They often say, oh, Russia is doing hybrid warfare, Russia is doing gray zone warfare, Russia is manipulating. But frankly, we know it. The Chinese capabilities are much greater, and their abilities to play with the minds of people around the world by talking, goody things is much superior. They have a bigger canvas on which they want to dominate. Russia cannot dominate the whole world. It's nowhere close. So I think the one strategy that must come forward is we need to actually ban a lot of these Chinese propaganda outlets and information. And there is a talk about, how if Donald Trump can be, his Twitter account can be shut down, how can the Global Times of China and their Twitter accounts and all these be free to disseminate their extreme jingoism? You have, the Communist Party mouthpieces on Facebook and Twitter, on American platforms, are broadcasting and reaching out to 2-3 billion or more people on a daily basis, and are saying things like, we will make American elites shiver, and we are ready to, teach them a lesson, and, and spreading disinformation. And then they say that, their model is a success. We managed to clamp down the contagion. We have brought it under control. Look at these democracies, they're all failing. But actually, they don't allow democratic media of any of these countries to operate in their country. No, for example,
Absolutely.
they have already harassed all the Western journalists out of China. So they are playing by this. So we should, I think, democracy, it's time for us to say, no, we cannot be penetrated like this, and we have to impose informational controls. Because you can only cut a diamond with a diamond, Gaurav.
Absolutely.
We cannot just say we are a liberal society, so it's okay, all viewpoints are okay. We cannot allow them to manipulate our public opinion.
Absolutely. I'm running out of time, Manjeet. The last word to you. your closing comments on how India should handle the information warfare emanating out of China, India specifically. Last 1 minute, please, and then I'll have to say goodbye to our viewers.
Well, I completely agree with Sriram on this. We had the guts and the courage to make the first act of asymmetric warfare, which is banning all the Chinese apps. I think absolutely we should ban the Chinese from their own propaganda in India, and they have plenty of friends here who help them. So we should do that. We should also be very tough on all the other major companies that are trying to manipulate India as well. You know, there's a lot of manipulation going on. So I agree with Sriram. Absolutely, we should ban them. We should not have Chinese products. Unfortunately, during this crisis, the Chinese are still saying, without us, India cannot survive. They're still getting our life-saving equipment from China. After this, basta. That's the end. We have to really look hard at our own environment and import from the other parts of the world.
Absolutely, Manjeet. I'm sorry I've run out of time. I'll have to close the program here. Viewers, thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Sriram Chaulia, Manjeet Kriplani, thank you very much for joining. Let's see what the next 90 days have to show. Joe Biden clearly spelling out the right act to China. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.